hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Go ahead.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki. And on Street Talk, we do the political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
Paget Maynard.
All right, man, we got a lot to cover tonight, but you want to tell us something about one of those great ladies?
Yes, I do, and this one is one of my favorites. The great Lorraine Hansberry.
Yeah.
Playwright, poet, and political activist. Best known for her work, her screenplay, Raisin in the Sun, which was later adapted into a movie. Produced by Sidney Poitier.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in 1930 on the south side of Chicago in the area that came to be known as Bronzeville. And it was comprised of a huge influx of people immigrating from the South in the 20s and even late teens, and created a vibrant community on the south side of Chicago. The idea that it was all impoverished and ghettoized is exaggerated, but there were people there who wanted more freedom of movement, wanted easier access to mortgages, wanted a life that they could aspire to based on their creative abilities. And that was the Hansberry family. Her father sent a lawsuit that ended up all the way in the Supreme Court. And it was about them attempting to move into a white neighborhood in a house that they had purchased. And that experience ended up becoming the play, at least the inspiration for the play, Raisin in the Sun. And Lorraine came from a magnificent family. Her father was a successful real estate broker. Her mother was a school teacher in a city councilwoman. And they had a vibrant home that stressed education and learning. And you can see, what do they say about the fruit of the tree? Her brother is one of my heroes, William Leo Hansberry, who started the African Antiquity Studies movement in the United States. First started at Howard University, I think it was in 1938 or 39, but this was her older brother. And out of that came John Henrik Clark, Kaba Kamene, all of the teachers that we are so familiar with now, who teach us about African antiquity and our place as a foundation for civilization. That came from her brother. She, of course, was a very, very much involved in international politics, and she saw the movement for civil rights in the United States and the freedom movement in Africa, where they're trying to throw off the colonial powers, is one of the same, two sides of the same coin. One that had to be supported so the other one could proceed. It was more of a Pan-African type of movement in her mind. Unfortunately, she died very young. She was only 34 years old when she passed away from pancreatic cancer. But in that short life that she lived, she started at Wisconsin, Madison, and dropped out after a couple of years, moved to New York City, and became a playwright. And in that time, between her upbringing, she had met people like Paul Robeson,
Yeah.
who she eventually worked for in his publication. Guests at her home were routine. W.E.B. Du Bois came to their house.
Yeah.
Duke Ellington came to their house. Jesse Owens came to their house. Paul Robeson, even before she met him professionally in New York,
Yeah.
was a guest in their home. So they had an intellectual foundation in this house that impacted the entire nation eventually through African studies through her brother and her own political international efforts to see that the colonial powers be overthrown in Africa, and that African Americans here in the United States had a fighting chance at true rights, true civil rights, the same as any other phenotype here in the United States of America. One of the most impactful women of the 20th century for sure, and one that we should never forget when we praise the ancestors and thank them for their contributions. Lorraine Hansberry was indispensable to our growth as people here in the United States.
Yeah, and she thought at one time she had gotten well.
Yeah.
And she also was she did a lot of things for the freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
Freedom riders and all those different things.
Oh yeah. She was active throughout the United States. She went to Mexico and went there to study painting, but she became politically involved there. She was an indispensable ally of the political movement in Africa.
Yeah.
Where again, you think about the fact that Africa has sovereign nations now. If you look underneath the cover, you can still see the imprints of colonial influence and distortion of the political body there. But at one time, it was just overt. We own you.
Yeah.
We own your land.
Yeah.
We own your resources, and we own you as people. And we'll tell you what you'll do. And without people like Lorraine Hansberry, that would have taken a much longer period of time and have been much more difficult to overthrow.
Yeah, I was watching some of the PBS stations. This was last week, and they was in some part of South Carolina, a little place in South Carolina, where it was 60% black and 40% white. So this black guy was trying to get these people with the hamburger stands and all these different stands and everything, restaurants and all these. They had these those stickers. I mean, these flags, these old rebel flags, and
Traitors.
yeah. And this black guy, he was working on trying to get these people to take them down because, it's, for me, and million or more black, it don't mean anything good, And they had this.
Well, it's more than not good. It's an insult.
Yeah.
It's no different than what a Jewish person would see if they saw a swastika flag flying at a restaurant near their home.
Right.
It's no different.
No.
It represents murder, rape, hegemony. It represents evil.
Yeah.
And for people to just brush it aside is like they're just expressing themselves is offensive.
Yeah.
We can't tolerate those type of symbols.
No. And
if we do, it's at our peril.
Yeah. And they would talk to this black guy who was trying to get the people to take those things down, and they would go back to this white guy, and this white guy said something that million of whites in this country think and believe. He said blacks should be proud being brought from Africa.
Oh, loss.
He said that the blacks there, before being brought to America, he said blacks was running around with bones in their nose. It's
a very familiar position of people. And the shame of it is you find a whole lot of black folks who believe that. They think the transatlantic slave trade for forwarding them into Christianity, because without Christianity, their souls wouldn't be saved. Unbeknownst to them, the very foundation of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Zoroastrianism, you could go down the line, all are based on African spirituality.
Yeah.
You could look at the Ten Commandments and see that they were stole from the Meta Netter. I could go on, and I won't do that, but it's an insult.
Yeah.
The idea that Africans were running around in the jungle with bones in their noses at the same time as the transatlantic slave trade is fallacy. When you could look no further than the Songhai dynasty,
Right.
which is where modern day Mali, Ghana, Western Nigeria, Niger is today. That was one of the richest republics in the world.
Yeah.
They exported tobacco, they exported cotton, they exported heavy precious metals.
Yeah.
But the one thing they exported most of was books. To people who wanted to learn to read in their own language, they created the ability to translate from the native language into writing so that they could use this. This is all in the 15th century AD. We're not talking antiquity.
Right.
And so when someone comes to you and says that with sincere belief, that what they're really doing is expressing their sincere ignorance of history.
Right.
But you have a lot of people who believe that.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of people who, irrespective of how much melanin they have in their skin, think that, well, whatever we had to go through is worth it because we're here now and we're in the greatest country in the history of the world. Well, by what criteria is this the greatest country in the history of the world? And by what measure do you have any self-esteem whatsoever in that you won't even vet this narrative? You won't investigate this narrative that's been handed down to you. Said, well, we justify the rape, the murder, the brutality, the false imprisonment, the denial of your rights, because you being here under these conditions is better than what you came from.
Right.
Poor Negro.
Yeah.
And you got a whole lot of black folks. Y'all some bones, I believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, you just saw in the recent weeks. I was about to say Strom Thurmond, but it's the same thing. Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make a statement that wasn't not a misspeak, where he separated Americans from African
Americans.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, he said he forgot a word. He omitted a word.
Oh, that was after he said it.
That was the correction.
Yeah.
But it didn't make a hill of beans.
Yeah, he meant what he said. And that's the dichotomy. You got your real Americans who came here as immigrants from Europe. In most cases, hundreds of years after we'd already been here. And then you have your support staff.
Yeah.
Your Africans, your people who immigrated here from Central and South America. They're not really Americans.
Right, yeah.
Listen,
You know, so
man,
we really shouldn't be concerned about their voting.
you
rights
just got
and-
to say like
and-
Mr.
and-
T. Pity the fool.
Yeah, well.
That's all you could do. Pity the fool.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but we got to pity ourselves first, because this comes at our
Well, we are
expense.
fools too,
This
because
comes at our expense.
we're going like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying, Patrick, though.
Yeah, you go ahead with your person.
No, I was
Only one thing I could add there with Dennis. He mentioned Jesse Owens. I happen to have met somebody here in Lansing, Michigan, who is a close relative of Jesse.
Is that right?
Oh, wow. Wow.
I've known him for a few years. Unfortunately, he passed.
Well, you know, he's from Ohio, so you know. But you were saying something else you want to discuss.
Oh, we get more of the politics then. Okay. Biden's handling of Supreme Court vacancy has been clumsy at best, according to Senator Collins.
Clumsy.
Yes.
Go ahead.
That's what she said.
I'm not going to break in. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You should start by saying disgraced Maine Senator Susan Collins, but go ahead.
Okay.
I won't come down on her. Right now.
She said it is clumsy.
Did she say she was concerned?
Yeah. And
I'm concerned.
the fact that Biden in the campaign said he will nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court, it was actually the politicization of the Supreme Court.
So by him saying that he's going to nominate a black woman, so it became
For saying it in his campaign. All right? Now, Stephanopoulos questioned her. He said, well, what happened? Reagan said he was going to put a woman.
He did put a woman.
Okay.
Nixon said it too.
Yeah.
But then, I ain't even gone back to Dickie. Trump, this is just here the other day. Trump had over and over made the statement. He wants his nominees to be anti-Roe v. Wade. He was going to put people who is going to get rid of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
All right? So the question then is, were they politicizing it when they did that? When recently Moscovich refused to allow Obama's nominee to go through, then he rushed through a couple days before the election for this woman. Well, of course, give her some credit now. Collins said she didn't vote for her because this was too close to an election and she felt it should have been left for the whoever becomes president to do it. The same argument they used back in 16.
Yeah. Well, you know, but now we're talking about one of these black woman being on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten to be he's got to have she can't be this and she can't be that. This is what the Republicans are saying, you know. But forget them, man, you know.
Right. It does no good to pay any attention to pay attention to what liars say.
Yeah.
I don't care what the title is.
Yeah.
If you lie, you can't rely on anything anything they say.
Right.
Susan Collins is always concerned. She always has these justifications for going along with retrograde, racist, backwards policies because she's concerned. She has these concerns about what the Democrats may do. And when you put the shoe on the other foot, she has no problem with it. So I pay no attention to her any more than I do what Donald Duck has to say.
Right.
The fact that she's reelected every 6 years speaks to what the people of Maine demand from their representative, but she doesn't represent anyone else outside of the state of Maine. She is a certified and recorded liar.
Yeah.
So we can leave it at that.
Yeah. and the thing is that.
Yeah.
Let me elaborate a little bit though. Remember this? First time Donald Trump's impeached. He is on the phone with the president of Ukraine trying to get this man to agree to lie on Joe Biden's son to set up his campaign against Biden. And in turn, he'll agree to do what he's supposed to do under NATO agreements anyway, and that's protect Ukraine from the Soviet Union or any other hostile outsider. Okay, let's look at that. What did Susan Collins say in voting not to impeach Trump? I think he's learned his lesson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Less than 3 years later, this fool is back at it again, trying to overthrow the very government. After January 6th, he goes and gets impeached again, and she still can't find it.
Right.
despite the fact that he learned
Yeah.
his lesson,
Yeah.
she still can't find it in her moral center
Yeah.
to vote for this man to be removed
Yeah.
from office.
Yeah.
So Susan Collins and her ilk have no
Yeah.
credibility with
And
me whatsoever.
I don't have much credibility for the woman from Alaska either.
You know, if they lie to you once, they lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
Susan is always, she has to think about it. And with all due respect.
Sir.
But then, she never could come off of it. She still falls back in line. But you might recall what Schiff said at the close of that first impeachment. You let him go now, and I'm paraphrasing.
Yep.
You let him go now.
He'll
It's going to
do
be
it again.
worse.
He'll do it again.
You can't stop him. He's going to continue doing
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yep.
And didn't it happen?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
down the road?
Yeah.
Then when you find people like Collins, and this is not being disrespectful to her,
Okay.
whether as a politician or woman or what.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, she's wavy. And my brother-in-law would say, she zigzag.
Mm-hmm.
She don't go straight. She zigzag.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get straight from her where she is on the subject because for whatever reason, she has to give it some thought. I mean, some things that are so absolutely clear, why you need to give so much thought again, I don't know.
I'll tell you
But-
where you can count on Susan Collins to be. You can tell exactly what she's going to say. You can look at what the mainstream Republican response is on an issue, and she will
Yeah.
do what she can to force that. Even when the occasion comes along, will she vote against them? She'll count the votes and make sure that their impetus is what passes. That's who Susan Collins.
Yeah.
I don't even know why we're wasting time talking
Yeah.
about this.
Well, you know, she is spearheading a committee. They want to make some changes, some improvement, I should say, on a particular law about the counting of the Electoral College votes. Mr. Donald, and I got a statement I wrote out that Donald said, okay? He
Okay.
totally doesn't understand what's going on. He is claiming up to Saturday night in his meeting that Pence had the right as vice president to overturn the election. This is what he put out. If the vice president had absolutely no right to change the presidential election results in the Senate, despite fraud and many other irregularities, none of which proven, how come the Democrats and Reno Republicans like wacky Susan Collins are desperately trying to pass legislation that will not allow the vice president to change the results of an election? Actually, what they're saying is that Mike Pence did have the right to change the outcome, and they now want to take that right away. Unfortunately, he didn't exercise that power. He could have overturned the election. Mr. Donald Trump, you are so mistaken. That is not what it's about. He didn't have any power to change anything. They're just looking into the way they count. There is a challenge you could make in the count, in that one House of Representative member, along with one senator, was enough to challenge the count from the state. So they're looking into things like that to make sure that it's airtight, that you can't just creep in some nonsense.
Okay. I hope we never get in calling Trump's name again.
Oh, you're gonna get him out. You're gonna find him coming up.
You know, I mean, really, because I get sick of him, and it's like, you know, it's like, whoa. Let's talk about some of the ladies we got. What we got? 8 or 9 black women
for the
for the
Supreme Court
yeah.
nominee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Sherrilyn Ifill personally as a Supreme Court justice. I love her progressive politics. I love the work she's done over the years. I think she's probably a long shot, but you have Jackson, who is probably the front runner, is among the
seems to be,
among the suggested candidates by Joe Biden. But it's certain that a black female will be nominated to
definitely
become the next justice on the Supreme Court, and the fight will be easily predictable about her qualifications.
Yeah.
Now let's juxtapose. We have women who are sitting in the Court of Appeals. We have women who are federal judges. We have women who have heard cases. We have women who have broad and extensive experience in the judicial system. Now let's look at Amy Coney Barrett.
Yep.
Oh, lost.
Never tried a case.
Oh, lost.
Never heard a case.
No.
Qualifications.
No, you're being mean now, Dennis.
That's factual.
I just want to make sure you're not being mean.
She never heard a case. She never sat for the case. She never tried a case. She never argued a case.
Right.
So if she is qualified to be in the Supreme Court, so is this Waterbout.
And
Because you
clip.
don't have to be a lawyer to be on the Supreme Court. We've had justices who are not lawyers, who did not pass the bar, but they had a moral center or political strength that made them acceptable for those people who voted at that time. So if the criteria here in 2022 is for you to have certain judicial experience and certain judicial background, why is Amy Coney Barrett on the court?
Right.
And we can go down the line. They've had dubious
and don't forget
claims.
that guy before them, his first nominee.
Well, that's the point. We've had dubious claims to qualifications to be on the court. But again, here in America, when it's time for someone melanated, particularly someone melanated with the genitalia of a female to be nominated to the court, now we've got to scrutinize and make sure they reach this high bar because we're so special. We must have only the best. So it's an insult. It's a lie. Another lie, and it's a slap to the face of people like us, and we should be prepared to go to the mat for this nomination because the insults and the lies are going to come at a wholesale.
You know, Lindsey Graham is supporting a woman, a black woman. She's from South Carolina. The name gone from me, but he claims how she's so very qualified, blah, blah, blah. And he threw in a little thing. And she's not out of Harvard and Yale.
Well,
which Amy Coney Barrett isn't either. She went to Notre Dame. So.
Well, he was touting because she's South Carolina and from University of South Carolina, pushing his people.
They rely on people not reading the paper and knowing what's going on.
So this means he won't support anyone black who's not from South Carolina.
I'm not saying that.
Well, he's voted for 3 of them in their confirmation at the federal level. So it's going to be difficult for him to turn around and say they're not qualified to be in the Supreme Court, but they can do it.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power. And I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.